Now get started with the block party. Get my notes ready so I know what I'm yapping about this next 30, 45 minutes. It's crazy. Remember when like Zoom wasn't really a thing before the pandemic? Like if you said Zoom in 2019, most people didn't know what you were talking about. And now it's such a normal part of life and like expected. Like most of my working life is on Zoom. But I couldn't have told you what it was in, I mean, heck, in January of 2020, I couldn't have told you what it was. For real, for real. Skype is crazy. Skype. Gotcha. Let's get it popping. And we here, we might as well start, right? So welcome to the first ever block party. Woo! I remember when maybe a year ago almost, when I was thinking about the block and I was trying to figure out how I can make more stuff happen than just writing to you every Wednesday. That's when the idea of the block party started. And I was like, well, what if I had a party online for people on the block? And then obviously block party came really easily. But the whole point was just to come together as this little community, every Wednesday morning community that we are, and just talk, say what's up. Um, and what I wanted to use this time is almost the same as like what some people would call like a family meeting, where we just come and we talk about whatever's going on. And so I kept wanting to have these things over the last year, but the last year has been crazy to say the least, just in terms of work and life. And so I was never able to get to it. And I thought now that everything's kind of settled down and things haven't ramped up yet, this would be the perfect time to actually get started on a block party. Because this is just a space just to chat, just to talk. Y'all can hit me up through the chat at any point, ask questions at any point. Um, but this one is just going to be a reflection of the year and what's been going on. I have my notes here so I don't get completely lost in this yap session of mine. But if you have questions, you have thoughts, like just put them in the chat. I'll get to them as I see them. It's really helpful if you throw things in the chat, so it feels like we're talking to each other. I'm not just looking at myself talking. Uh, so yeah, so I thought I'd start with talking about Philadelphia, which kind of in a weird way feels like a fever dream now, to be honest. Like I was in Philadelphia so much this year, but ever since I came back home in May, so much has happened between coming home in May and now. It feels like Philadelphia was years ago. But for those who may not know or may not remember what the fellowship was about, I got the Lloyd Richards New Futures Fellowship this month a year ago. And one, it came at a really, really trying time. As y'all know, my grandma passed away in June. And we were really trying to figure out what was going to happen to us financially this season. When I got that call about getting this fellowship, the $50,000 that came with it, y'all, the way me and Ashley cried when that thing came through, just knowing we just had money just set aside for the family for an entire season, like it was incredible. But the whole point of the fellowship was to allow a Black director or choreographer to shadow other artistic directors in the regional theater space. And I had the opportunity to talk to the Wilma Theater. And the Wilma Theater is in Philadelphia. Okay, boss. One second, y'all. Getting feedback from my wife. One second, everybody. We're gonna try without headphones. Give me 1 second. We're trying to see if we can get. We're trying to see if we can get less feedback. Okay, here we go. So, the Wilma, I had an opportunity to talk to the Wilma Theater in Philadelphia, and the Wilma had just won the Tony Award for Best Regional Theater in 2024. And so I applied with the Wilma Theater. We got it, which was awesome. And so the idea of the fellowship is that you spend half of the fellowship artistically working with the artistic director, working on shows, doing actual artistic work in the theater. And the other half of the fellowship, you are inside the everyday workings of how to operate a regional theater. So it was artistic and it was operational at the same time. So which I was really excited about because about a year ago, I was really starting to question like what my next steps were as an artist, and if I just wanted to keep making art, or if I wanted to start to move towards like institution-based work, like running a regional theater, becoming an artistic director. I wasn't so sure, and so I got the chance to work on multiple shows at the Wilma. I got to work on the Snow Queen, which you know the Snow Queen is like the OG Frozen, basically. I worked on a play called The Most Spectacularly Lamentable Trial of Ms. Martha Washington. And that play was basically the way I like to talk about it is if you take a Christmas Carol and instead of Scrooge, it's Martha Washington, George Washington's wife. And instead of the ghost of past, present, and future, it's Martha Washington's enslaved people, and they're waiting for her to die so they can be free. And it's a really dark comedy. It was really, really fun to do. And then the last one I got to work on was America Play, which was a play about this black man who basically got caught up trying to be a Lincoln impersonator. And so caught up that he basically loses himself in it, which is also really, really cool. But so I was thinking about the show and I was thinking about, or the fellowship, and I was just thinking about what happened. And so one of the questions I wrote to myself was what surprised me? And I would say the first thing that surprised me about being in Philadelphia, what I thought was going to happen when I get to the East Coast, and all of a sudden the Pandora's box of the arts would be open to me. And all of a sudden I would see all these things and know all these things I had never thought of, never seen before. And I got there and I realized I knew everything everybody was talking about, which was kind of crazy because again I was driving 6 hours being like, okay, I need to be on my A game. I need to really, really be here to learn all brand new things I never heard about. And I got into the artistic director meetings. I got into the board meetings, and I was expecting to sit there and be struggling to understand the conversations. And I realized very quickly that, oh, I know exactly what's going on and exactly what everyone's trying to accomplish. So an example is like they were in the middle of, so the Wilma has 3 artistic directors at the time, and they had this kind of shared leadership model, but they were trying to develop the next season for the Wilma. So picking new shows, deciding which shows they're going to do, going through the budgets of those things, talking to the various writers of those shows to try to license those shows to do them next. You know, they have all these things they have to manage. They have to think about artistic integrity. They have to think about, will people show up to see the show? How easy is it to market the show? Um, all of those things. And I was in those meetings listening and realizing like, yo, me and Ashley do the exact same thing every time we start a new project. Now, we're not a $5 million+ organization. We're, you know, it's just us, it's small, but the principle was the same. And that's what got me. Every time me and Ashley pick a new project, it's not like we just, you know, I tell the stories like the Remember Balloons and things like that. And these beautiful ways where it's like, and I miraculously came across this book and it spoke to me, and which is not untrue. But the reality is when me and Ashley are thinking about the next project, we're considering artistic integrity. What's going to challenge me and make me excited about making new work? How easy is it going to be to sell this new project? How easy will it be for presenters to market this new project when they're trying to sell it to their communities to come see the show, right? Like I loved In Cop Negro with all of my heart. It went nowhere because it was not marketable and sellable to the marketplace, which taught me a lot about certain projects or for certain things. And so I have to say, like when I was in those meetings, I was listening, I was like, oh, I know exactly what is going on here and what they're trying to do. So I was able to kind of like chime in here and there. So that that really, really surprised me. Another thing that surprised me on the artistic end was, again, going back to like I was going to go to Philadelphia and like the world was going to open up. I was going to, they're going to speak a different language. You know, sorry, I'm thinking about like House of Dragons. Me and Ashley are watching House of Dragons, and they speak Valyrian, which is like this like they're basically like speaking in tongues, but they're dragons. Um, I was like expecting to go there, and all of a sudden they'd be like speaking a new tongue I've never heard before. But I got into these various projects, and I'd have my choreographic assignments for these various shows. And what I was surprised by was the space between the work I was doing and the reaction I was getting to the work I was doing in a positive way felt disproportional. Like, maybe easier way to say it is I didn't feel like I was working that hard choreographically to make things for them, but the reaction to what I was making was much greater than the work I felt like I put towards making this thing. Which, on one hand, I guess is awesome. Um, but I was just like, I'll call Ashley and be like, babe, I don't feel like I'm working very hard. And I feel like they really like it. And I feel like I should be doing more than I'm doing. And I don't really know what to do about that. So that really surprised me. And it showed me it just showed me that in different projects, doing different things, especially when you're not the director, the choreographer, the producer, everything, um, frankly, like how much more space you have in your brain, and how that allows you to make things much easier than you did before. So there's some of the big things that surprised me, but I'll tell you what challenged me. First and foremost, I was away from Ashley and the kids. I would just say way too much and way too long. Like in the fall of 25, I was home for 9 days over 9 weeks, and that was just brutal. Because I was in Philadelphia, I was going on tour to a couple of spots with the Remember Balloons, and I was working up in Minneapolis on a new project as well, like a small project up there. And it was way too much. It was difficult to feel. I learned that part of what grounds me as an artist is being at home and being with my family and like that root system for yourself so that you're able to go out into the world and do things. But if I spend too much time not being with my root system, I just feel disconnected. And part of what's so hard about being out in the world is you're just alone. Like, you know, and if you know me personally at all, I can be by myself. I don't mind being by myself whatsoever. But I was alone so much, I started to like just really struggle. Cause if I wasn't in rehearsal, which sometimes it was great because I'd be in rehearsal 8 hours, but sometimes I'd be in rehearsal for 30 minutes, and the rest of the day I was doing what? I could only go to the gym so many times. I could only work on the Remember Balloons so much on a computer during a day. And so what I actually ended up doing is getting into the world of Star Wars. Like I've never been a Star Wars watcher, and then all of a sudden I was watching every single Star Wars anything they ever made. And I'll tell you what I didn't know about Star Wars, it's gonna sound crazy, is how political this show was, and how much watching Star Wars in our current political climate, it was just like an allegory, a metaphor for what we're going through right now. And I was just shocked by it. So I was literally like, no kidding. I would go to bed at like 1 a.m. because I was watching Star Wars, wake up at 6 a.m., keep watching Star Wars, go to rehearsal, come back, keep watching Star Wars. Because it was the only thing I felt like I could do to just keep my attention. I literally felt like I had to get lost in another universe, literally, in order to stay sane by being in Philadelphia. And as I reflect back, and I think about like, well, I could have spent more time with people, I could have met up with people more often, which is true. But the difficult part was that $50,000 only stretches so far. And if you take into consideration, I was driving out there all the time. I was driving around the country a lot during that time. I had to eat in downtown Philadelphia constantly, which is super expensive. And the point of that money was so that my family at home could have the money. It just made it hard. I wasn't trying to spend a whole lot of money when I was out there because I was trying to make sure the money was there for my family. So that was a real challenge, and I felt like what the challenge did for me was help me understand what makes me work internally and how I like to work. So like as the future comes, as more opportunities start coming up nationally, it allows me to look at people and say like, hey, I can only be there for X amount of time. If you want me there longer, the price point of me being there needs to be exponentially higher. Just because I want to be at home, I want to be with my kids. I don't want to miss soccer games or t-ball games. I want to be with my wife. I want to raise our children together. I want to be a husband. And yeah, it's really important for me. The other challenge that I had was be. It has been a while since I haven't been the person in the front of the room, and yeah, basically since 2020, I've been the person in front of the room. I've been the director. I've been the choreographer, and so suddenly being thrust into this world where I wasn't the first person on the call list, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. I was maybe the sixth person when it came to the design team. How do I say kindly? I had a teeny part in all these shows, and in comparison to everybody else, the amount of time that one is given as a choreographer in the theater world is very small. So when I'm in these theater spaces, okay, so I'll give you an example. One of the directors I worked with, they were very much like they were a man with a plan. They come in, they knew exactly what they wanted, and they would work and they would work and they would work. And I would have certain days I could come and do choreography. Otherwise, I was just sitting at the table in the front, just watching. And every once in a while, he'd get really stuck in a moment. And he'd look at me and say, Dom, you got anything? And I had to like jump up, get in there, and like do a little fixing with him. And then as soon as I was at the end of that, the collaboration door was closed. There was no more words from Dominic. No more words from Dom. And so I go sit back in my little chair and just watch. And what was crazy is that over time he would ask me more and more questions. There'd be more and more, Dom, you got anything? And he started to trust me a little bit more. But when I would go in to like help it all, I kid you not, had like a 4 minute window to make thoughts and things happen before like I'll be in the middle of saying something and he would just interrupt me. And it was clear my time was over. I took too long. Excuse me. So what was crazy was just to like I've never been in a situation where collaboration was specifically tied to an amount of time they wanted to hear from you. So that was a challenge. But then you had other directors who were much more like me, way more collaborative. But the challenge in those were they're almost so collaborative, it felt like the collaboration door never shut, which meant I never understood when I was done working, like my portion of responsibility was over. So yeah, so I mean that was the challenge is not being the person in front of the room, but it taught me a lot about being the person in front of the room. It taught me a lot about how I work with people and how I'm a huge collaborator, but I'm a person who walks in the room and I have a vision, I have a direction we're gonna go. I don't need help on the direction that we're going. Where I want to work together is once I decide a direction, then everything's open. Um, and so it taught me that like I can hone that a little bit more and explain that a little bit more to people when they're working with me that like, hey, I'm probably gonna come into the room, I'm gonna know exactly the direction we're going. So let me do that. And once I tell you direction, then it's free for all. What you say here? I think that's actually really interesting though. Your energy output is more protected when your window closes clearly. No, that's super true. It is super true. Like when you know it's over, you're like, okay, I can back off and like kind of get ready for the next one. When the door didn't close, it always felt like I don't. When do I? When do you want me? When do you not want me? Like I'm doing this motion and it feels like double dutch. Y'all remember double dutch? And it feels like you're just like, okay, when do I jump in? When do I jump in? When do I jump in? So that can also be really, really hard when you feel like the double dutch game isn't over for you at any point. That you're always like ready to go. So that was a huge challenge. And I'll just say two things to close this topic. I got interviewed by the Stage Directors and Choreographers Foundation, who are the people who gave me the money for the fellowship. And the big thing they asked me was, what changed? What shifted in you through this fellowship? And I thought for a little bit and I said, confidence. I realized through this project, through this program, through this fellowship, that I created in my head that because I'm from where I'm from and I'm working where I'm working, that Mortal Kombat mode is hilarious. Um, because I'm working where I'm working, that there must be something I don't know that people on the East Coast know. Because again, like let's be honest, like I'm the main one. I love to say like it don't matter where you are in the country. Like art is art. The quality of art is quality of the art. You don't have to be from New York, which is true. But there's also another reality that there's a reason why that northeast portion of our country is kind of like the mecca of the arts in our country, right? Like we have to respect the history that it has, and that when you go up towards the East Coast, you get platformed. Northeast, you get platformed differently. And I had to create this belief because hadn't spent a lot of time over there. I'd never been over there. That I was not on the same level as those folks over there. And I go to Philadelphia. I spend all this time there. There's write-ups about me in the Philadelphia Inquirer and some other news outlets about the work that I'm doing. And at the same time, I feel like I'm not even working very hard. And what I realized in my time there is like my problem between where I am now and where I want to be in my career is simply my belief that I belong in those spaces. And not just that I belong in those spaces, that I don't need permission to be in those spaces. That I can carve out my own lane in that portion of the country with the quote best of the best or with those like high platform places. Um, and it just takes the work it took me to get here is the same kind of work it's going to take me to get there. I don't suddenly need some superpower to get over there. And so that really, really changed. That has changed me. I have a confidence about myself now that I did not have a year ago as an artist. And frankly, like it changed my confidence going into the Remember Balloons Live, which is the next thing I want to talk about. Like it completely changed walking to the room with the dancers, walking to the room with 19 musicians and the production staff and going to EJ Thomas. Because now I was walking to the room saying like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm after. Um, and hop on my back. I'm gonna take us there. Right. I felt like a push to lead in a way where I've always been just like a little reluctant, and I don't need to be. If I know what I'm going for, I go for it. And if it sucks, it sucks. Oh well, just raise more money. Let's do it again. And that's kind of where I am now. Um, but the Remember Blues Live, man, you want to talk about a life changing project? I still think back sometimes to like when me and Ashley started fundraising for the original show back in 2024, and after the show, it is hard to imagine sometimes that we've gotten to where we've gotten to. But so the question I wrote for myself, and again, feel free to ask questions in the chat. What did it feel like to produce something that size? And you want to know the crazy thing? I actually think producing the Remember Balloons live was easier than producing the original one. People keep asking me and Ashley after the show, like, you guys must be exhausted. You must be so tired. And we're just like, not really. Because there's something different about leading a room full of 40 to 45 people. And when those people are giving you life and you're giving them life at the same time, like you don't walk away feeling exhausted. You walk away feeling really, really full. Like we went on a mini vacation after the show was done. And I was just like, I could do two more, three more, four more shows. I was so, it was so beautiful and so life giving to be in that space and be with those people. You know, if anything, especially after we get the show, like I would say, if you would have asked us about 2 weeks before Tech Week how we were doing, that was like the high stress time because it was the first time we had all the musicians in the studio. We were bringing it all together. We were trying to get the music um, integrated with the dance. Like that was the high stress time. So by the time the show came, we were just taking things off of our backs. We were just every day we were just taking a little bit more and a little bit more. So by the time show day came, we were moving pretty free. You know, it was I mean, poor Ashley, the 2 weeks before the show, she lost our car keys for a week. Like it was a lot because we weren't just running rehearsal, we were also providing food for all the artists. So there's just a lot of logistical things all happening at the same time. But yeah, but I think having all those people involved, like when you feel like you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing, it is hard for me to feel exhausted by it. Um, Whereas the original show, part of it is like we're further along than we were in the beginning. But in the original show, there was a lot of output. And the team that we have, I love our team. Um, but it just felt different when you felt like you were making the thing you really, really wanted to make. The first show was beautiful, but I always knew the first show was a constrained version of my vision. So when I actually got to make the thing I wanted to make, I wasn't tired. There's nothing I was tired about. Um, so yeah, so that's part of what it was like to produce the show. Like a lot of logistics. Yeah, we had a lot of people, and there's a lot of moving pieces, but we have great people. And we have a great culture, um, and we spent a lot of time cultivating that culture on purpose. So what worked? Live musicians worked. I'll tell you what. If you saw the show, you saw them 12 feet in the air, and I literally think it changed everything about the piece. I think the piece is infinitely better with live musicians on stage and the music that Darren Brown made. Like there's nothing in comparison to what we did with them. And what was so great was we had about 6 weeks to get all these musicians because we would bring them a chunk at a time. So we had the rhythm section come in first for a couple of weeks, and then the next couple of rehearsals we added the horn section, and then we added the strings musicians 2 weeks before the show started. And what really worked was like bringing those people into the culture. So we had a out of the string musicians, we had one double bass player, and she was probably 60, 65 years old. And the way we started every rehearsal, especially when new people came in or a new section would come in, everybody gets in a circle. We all introduce ourselves. We say our role. I go through the values and the agreements of our team, and then I read the book to everybody. Read the children's book. This one right there. I just read it. And then I tell the origin story of how we got there, and I kind of like set the scene and prepare and frame the experience. After that first rehearsal, she walks up to me and she goes, "Hey, I just want to thank you for how you introduced today. I've been playing this instrument for a long time, and no one has ever told me why I'm playing." And I was like, in my head, I was like, "What do you mean no one told you why you were playing? How did you know what to do then?" And she was just like, "We usually come in, we're handed sheet music, we play it, we leave. We're never brought into the fold of understanding why this is so important." So, like, what worked is taking care of culture and taking care of all the artists like their people. A lot of those artists had a connection to Alzheimer's that we later found out. Like, someone didn't even tell me until after the show that they had one. I thought they was just over there playing the violin, like whatever. But they had this whole deep backstory to why they wanted to be in the project. And so that really, really worked. What didn't work? So I'd say what didn't work, I learned a thing about producing that I was not the best at knowing the order of precedence in which things should be happening. So like so here's a very clear example. So we hired all the artists, we had a tech schedule for the artists to put in their calendars, and then we get a couple months towards the show, and all of a sudden with my production manager, who I'd hired a little bit after all the artists, because I was so worried about making sure we had the artists that we wanted. Then we started working on a production schedule. The production schedule changed 3 times. We had to keep emailing the artists, changing dates, and the artists were starting to get frustrated. I was getting frustrated. And that thing would keep happening throughout time. And I started realizing that, oh, I know all the things we're supposed to do. I'm not as clear as the order in which they're supposed to happen. So what didn't work as well as it could have was the order of precedence of producing a show and what happens first, second, third, and fourth. And again, great thing I have a great production manager, Scott Leathers, who can kind of help move things around. It helped me when I make mistakes, and Ashley's obviously there to help me as well when I make mistakes. That's definitely something that didn't work. Um, what also didn't what also didn't work. It's a funny didn't work. I think we did really well marketing the show to the skill level that we had, but we bought these balloons that had this QR code on them that said remember, and if you went to the QR code, it took you to the website of the show to buy tickets. And so we were really excited about this idea, but we realized quickly that we didn't have enough money to buy enough helium to like tie the thing to like people's cars and stuff. Totally fine. So we're like, okay, what if we like stuck the balloons to these like sticks that you would stick on there and you could just like put them in the ground? Like, cool, let's do that. So Ashley goes all over the city. She's putting these balloons everywhere. And the thing we didn't think through is that if the balloons are sitting in the sun, all of them explode. So we just had exploded balloons all over the city of Akron. So that was, I love the idea. I still think there's merit in the idea if we can figure it out in the future for some other reason. But yeah, there's just exploded balloons everywhere. And again, poor Ashley. So Ashley hates balloons, like the popping of balloons. Um, yeah, it's still a tactic. The popping of balloons really scares her. And here I am. I got her just traveling the city with all these popping balloons. She didn't seen more balloons in her life than she's ever wanted to see them. So that also for sure didn't work. Um, so where we are now. So I have a meeting tomorrow with PBS and the video crew to start talking about post production for the show. So a reminder, PBS, they record the entire show. They subcontracted Nell Shelby Productions, who does like the biggest dance companies in New York City, Ailey, Ballet Hispanico, all of them. And their team flew to Akron, did our show, and now we're gonna start doing post production. So post production isn't gonna start until September on the video. And between September and end of October, we'll get it all done. And then in November, during Alzheimer's Awareness Month, the show will be on PBS Western Reserve. Now, the thing I'm not sure about yet is if we'll put a YouTube link of the show on. Um, I'll see if they don't. I will see if there's a world where they'll give me the link and I can give it to the block so y'all can see it because you guys are part of our community and so I just want you guys to see it. But then that happens, and then early 2027 is when they're going to send off our version, this new version of the show, from the local PBS to the national PBS to be considered to put on national television. Now, when we say national television, what we don't know is we don't know if that means it would end up on great performances or American Masters. I mean, I ain't no American Master yet, but you know what I'm saying. I don't know what kind of program it's on or any of that stuff. That's all conversations we have to have this fall. But what we do know is that it will be out this November, definitely running all the way through November. We'll be doing screenings of the show all over Northeast Ohio. I think we're doing about 5 of them with PBS Western Reserve, which will be really cool. And we'll have all of these people who are sponsors, like the Alzheimer's Association and others, tabling at those events, which I think is great. And then we'll see. It'll end up on national TV, um, which is, again, never thought. I don't know if I never thought, but it feels really cool to know we made something that can get considered to be all over national television. I mean, in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania alone, I think it's like 1.8 million houses will have access to it, which rounds out to about 5 million people. Which again, like you know how long it would take me to get 5 million people to see things if they had to come to the theater. Like that's crazy when you actually take the time to think about it. It's wild. And so I think the big lesson of this show that I'll take into the next show is it kind of goes with the producing thing. So when I was dancing professionally for, I mean, I guess I still am dancing professionally, but when I was dancing for other people for 15 years, I found myself after being done feeling like for most of that time I was taken advantage of financially by other producers, other artistic directors. And so when I set out in 2020 by myself, like the number one thing I said to myself is that I'm gonna make pure people get paid. And so I did. And I'll pay people so much that, I was frankly like probably overpaying most artists for what I was asking them to do. And I was doing it at the expense of my family's finances. Like I was not paying attention as much to how much money my family was losing because I was so worried about people getting paid the right way because I felt so taken advantage of for my situations. And in this project, because the money we raised was a lot, it was six figures, but we literally only had what we had. Me and Ashley were able to go in these conversations with the artists and say, like, hey, this is what we got. You want to do it? Yes or no? Like, there was no wiggle room to be like, yeah, I'll do it, but can I negotiate? Ain't no negotiate. We ain't got it. And what it did for me is make me realize that one, when you hold a certain standard and you run a certain culture and people start to hear about it, they're willing to work with you when you ain't got it. Because reality is right. Like if I had it, I would give it. Like let's be clear. Like I'm not so far in the producing realm. I'm trying to make sure at all costs I'm trying to get people to take as little as they can from the project. No, very opposite actually. If I had $2 million, people would get paid, right? But we didn't have that. So we're trying to make sure we can get these big visions done with what we can. But people and artists are willing to do it. They know they're going to be taken care of. If they know they're going to be treated like people, and they know that you really care as an artist, going to be about a part of something beautiful. And so it's a thing that kind of plagued us for many, many years until this project, where I think we finally figured it out, and it's allowing us to move forward with our next project. That I feel more, this next project we have is not as large as some of our other ones, so we're having to implement that skill of being able to say like, hey, we love to work with you, we love working with you, but like, brother, this is what we got. This is what we could do. And if you can't do it, I understand, but I can't find more money for you. But speaking of the other project, today it was announced on at Signal Akron. It'll also be coming out in Akron Beacon Journal in a couple weeks that we have a new project, and that project is called Float. So me and Ashley have been talking for a while about like, okay, what's next? What are we gonna do next? And so we kind of started looking at books here and there, but like we kind of weren't sure. And one day, Ashley and the kids brought a bunch of library books home, and I pulled out this book and I was reading it to the kids. And you turn the first page, no words. Turn the second page, no words. Turn the third page, and I go, "Is this book wordless?" And the kids are like, "Daddy, go back to the beginning." And then the kids proceeded, as I flipped the pages, to tell me the story, what was happening. And when this happened, I was like, Ashley, I think this is the book. And what struck me was me and Ashley have been having a lot of conversations about like kids and screen time, kids and screens, all of those. That's a whole another conversation. But what I was stating in those conversations was we live in a highly visual world where our children specifically are watching things where the people are telling them what to think all the time. And I don't like that. But then here, I got this book that's all just pages, and they're not telling the kids what to think. They're asking them to interpret what they see. And I was like, that's what we need. Because the ability to see something, interpret something for yourself is the process of being someone who can watch art and interpret it for themselves. So I did the thing I do, reached out to the author, got connected to the publisher, worked on the rights, and then we put Float in for a grant for a new organization called the TYA Tour Collective. And we ended up being one of the 4 organizations throughout the country who got this national grant, which is awesome. And so we're able to premiere this in November of this year, which is kind of like tomorrow. But what's great is that we got 9 commissioning organizations, and I wanted to make sure I say this right because they're helping us. So Float has commissioning support from the TYA Tour Collective with contributions by the Brooks Center for Performing Arts, which is in Clemson, South Carolina, Dayton Live, which is Dayton, Ohio, Des Moines Performing Arts, Des Moines, Iowa, La Jolla Music Society, La Jolla, California, Charleston, Gillard Center in Charleston, South Carolina, the City of Fort Collins Arts and Culture, which is in Collins, Colorado, the J and Susie Gogue Performing Arts Center, which is in Auburn, Alabama, Playhouse Square, Cleveland, Ohio, and Segerstrom Center for the Arts, which is in Costa Mesa, California. So all of those organizations gave to Float so that it could be made. Darren Brown is composing the show. We get started on rehearsals in 16 days. Yeah, and what's great is that we already know we're going to be touring nationally. We got at least 14 performing arts centers interested in talking to us about the 27-28 season, which is incredible. And so it's a story about a child who goes outside with this paper boat on this rainy day. And in our version, our adaptation of the story, the child is really, really bored at home. They're with their parent. Their parent's like, here's this newspaper, like make something. And the child's like, well, I don't know how. I don't want to. I don't know what to do. So eventually, like the parent helps them make this paper boat. They send them outside. The kid's like, I got this paper boat. This is kind of boring. They start kind of walking outside, and all of a sudden, these three other characters in the show, who are a part of the environment, their names are Thunder, Lightning, and Sprinkles. They are kind of like the triune and the personification of imagination. And their goal in the show is to try to help this child cultivate their imagination. And so they're kind of moving about the child. The child never sees them and kind of brings this imaginary world around them to life, to the point where all of a sudden he's playing. The boat turns into a pirate ship and all these other things happen. There's this rainstorm that happens, and they show him how to play in the rain and all those great things. And then eventually the child puts the paper boat down in the stream, and the boat takes off down the stream. The child's running after the boat. He's having a great time. But then he realizes it's not so great because the boat is out of his reach. Everything's confusing. Everything's overwhelming until the boat goes down a grate. And we have this really beautiful solo I'm excited about called Falling, where one dancer is doing a duet with the paper boat and slowly unraveling the paper boat as it's constantly falling. And eventually the now just newspaper gets given back to the child, and the child has to walk all the way back home disappointed by what happened. Gets home, the parent kind of like washes him up, sits him back down, and at the table they started to show out him, and now the kid's bored again. But now after a while, instead of just being bored and upset, the kid has a new piece of paper in front of him, and he just starts to fold one side of the paper, and then the other, and then the other, and then next thing you know, they're all into folding this new thing, and now they make a paper plane. And then they go outside, and now it's a sunny day, and there's paper plane, this beautiful choreography and music will happen, and then the show will end with the child back at the table, now playing with the paper plane. And what I love about it is it's about the cultivation of imagination and about how imagination is something you have to build. It's not something that's just innate. Like as a parent of little ones, like you have to show kids how to play. And that's how they learn. Like I think even as adults, like we have to be reminded that imagination is something that we cultivate. You have to constantly feed it for it to become something. And for me, a lot of it's dreams too, right? Like this child loves this boat. The metaphor is it's the child's first dream. So like for me, it was soccer, my first dream. But then that dream goes away. It deconstructs. You're disappointed. You don't know what to do. And at your lowest moment, you slowly start to rebuild and reconstruct a new dream out of the information you learned about the old dream. And here I am now with my paper plane flying. So, I mean, I'm really excited about the project. I'm really excited that it already has a life after we make it in November. I'm excited that people believe in something before we've even made it. Already said, congratulations. It is still thrilling that your already proven dream team is working on this new project. Yeah, thank you. No, we're super excited about it. I think I drive there and a little bit crazy because we weren't, I think it was last December when I started talking about this to Theron, and he was just like, man, can we get done with Remember Balloons live? And I was like, nah, bro, let's go. I mean, it was probably 3 weeks before the show, and he was deep in music writing. And I was sent him emails like, hey, can we set up a date to talk about Float? And he was like, no, we cannot. We cannot do that. And I was like, oh, my bad. When I get started, I can't stop sometimes. But yeah, so Float is it. Float is the next kind of major work that we're doing. I think what's going to be really great is in 27, 28, we will be touring the Remember Balloons and float at the same time, which is a new logistical problem we have to solve, but it's super exciting because the goal I made a couple years ago is I want multiple shows touring at the same time, which is going to be great. Um, the life of the Remember Balloons live, we have some pretty cool stuff we're working on that we can't talk about yet, but we're really excited about some of the possibilities of that project. It's my best work yet. It's my favorite work yet. Now I say that with the caveat that if you ever ask me what my favorite piece is, it will always be the last one I made or the one I'm about to make. But I really am excited about the live show. It's the best storytelling I think I've ever done. So yeah, so that's Float. And I guess the only other thing, unless y'all got some questions, is I have another piece called Black by Nature that's premiering in September um, with Dance Cleveland, which is very cool because I'm the only Northeast Ohio artist Dance Cleveland has ever presented outside of Diane McIntyre in their 70 years, which is kind of crazy. But Black by Nature is a piece that happens on the trail in Summit Metro Parks. It's a piece about me exploring my relationship to nature as a black man. I've been working on it for a couple years now, here and there, but I finally get to premiere it this September 19th and 26th, which will be great. You can go on um, Dance Cleveland's website. If you want to get tickets, it's free. You just got to register to be there because I think we only have like 40 slots per show. We're doing 2 shows a day, so there's only four performances of it. So you can see that too. Um, yeah. So yeah. So yeah. Any questions? I know I said 45 minutes. I'm a bit past that. Is there any questions? Anything I'm forgetting to talk about that y'all want to hear about? I was afraid of not being able to last this long, but about halfway through, I realized it's easier to just talk and not stop than I realized. So yeah, so Black by Nature. So this is what's cool about Black by Nature. I think it can have a touring life from a logistical standpoint because it's really cheap. We don't need a theater. We don't need lights. We don't need nothing. All we need is a presenter to have a natural space, pay us the money to get down there, pay us to do the work, and we can basically handle logistics all by ourselves. The only part that's a little like we don't know yet is all the music is live. So I think we would have to, if there was a way to work with local musicians in every community we went to and allow the just the jazz musicians to kind of improvise based off of it, I think it would really work. Because I'd rather not use canned music out in nature because something about it just feels weird. Um, yeah, like national parks, state parks. Yeah, so that's the hope. I think once we get like good footage, we'll be able to put it out there. I think, frankly, the other part is like, as I think all y'all know and all y'all heard me say, as soon as you put the word black in the title, people get really weird about it. So I think once I show people what the piece looks like and what it's about and how it's really about belonging and what it means to belong to something that you feel detached from, I think there'll be a lot more interest. I think a lot of performing arts centers will be interested in it. And a lot of these like park organizations will be interested in it too. So yeah, my hope is that we can tour because I think it's a perfect summer. Like touring really dies around the summertime, and I think it's the perfect piece to tour during the summer. Yeah, pillows are a great idea. It's a perfect piece to do during the summertime because when the weather is most, it's probably best for it, honestly. So yeah, my hope is Black by Nature tour. Which you have to see. It's a small cast of four. Me, you're on a walk with me, hike with me, and I'm just talking to you about my journey, and we have really great music. Ooh. All right, last call. Any questions? I think I'd do more of these. It was actually kind of fun. Going once. I will give y'all a call for auditions. That's what's up. Because we're gonna need people to tour this show. That's for sure. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, that's it. That's the Black Party. That's what it is. Um, we have a small group today, but I really appreciate y'all being on here and making this Black Party feel like it's a thing we can do in the future. I'm super excited about it. I'm still not sure about the Substack thing. Maybe next time I'll try it on Zoom where we can like hear people and talk to people. I think that's more fun. But we'll see next time. But yeah, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all taking the lunch hour with me. And I will talk to y'all next Wednesday on the block. All right, y'all. Deuces.